And when you hear the term "take up your cross and follow me," this is the cross you're invited to take up. It's very easy to get in contemplative, to get into a prayer of meditation or silence and stillness when you're feeling good. So, oh, it felt so good to sit there and be quiet, not pay attention to my crazy mind. Oh, it felt so good. Good for you. And it's a good start. But that's going to end someday. And then you're going to have to keep plugging along. So that's what take up your cross and follow me is. Not, it's going to be all sweet. It may start out that way, but eventually it gets tough. So what she said is a selfless heart. She said this later because she didn't know a selfless heart, but she discovered what it is because her humility and trust taught her to let go of her agenda because it wasn't taking her anywhere. She discovered that a selfless heart does not need to have sublime feelings. Oh, when you start out, so many people, when they start out with a prayer, centering prayer or Carmel prayers, whatever the silence and stillness is, a lot of it has to do with sublime feelings. How did you feel? You ask them at the end of the meditation. Now, say you're in a group. Well, probably some people don't even have the courage to say, I felt nothing. I was bored to death. So they kind of want to fit in with other people. Oh, I felt it. But many of them do feel quite good. But she found out that there could be a little bit of selfishness in that. In other words, I got what I wanted. I mean, all of us want to feel good. That's what we want. There's no cross in that. But transforming unit, becoming all who you're supposed to be, requires a selfless heart. And you're only going to get selfless if you don't get what you want and you stay in it. Anybody knows that in a relationship. You make promises, I'll forever, life do us, death do us part, I make with the collar, and I says, oh, I can't wait to be a priest. It's going to be so great. Yeah, well, then after a while, it's not so great. And after a while, your partner's an idiot, but who used to be wonderful. So, you just got to keep going in some ways to get that selfless heart. So I'm still learning selflessness. And I've been at this collar thing for a long time. A selfless heart does not need sublime feelings. Because wanting sublime feelings is what we call spiritual gluttony. Spiritual gluttony loves sublime feelings and wants more. So if you're addicted to more, that's spiritual gluttony, and you're going to be very disappointed in the spiritual life. And religion is certainly not going to help you. So you need a selfless heart. So her prayer, she realizes, prayer is not your ability. Well, early on, you think it's your ability. I mean, teach me how to pray, Our Father who art in heaven, in my tradition. But God remained utterly remote to her on a conscious level. So that this is more trust. God, on the conscious level, God is ultimately remote. And so her prayer does not have the ability to consciously engender God. She can get thoughts and concepts about God, but that's not any good. That's not helping her. That's good. That's where you teach children. You teach children about thoughts and about God, about heaven up. And so you show pictures of Jesus and show pictures of a guy, kind of bald head, long beard, so on and so forth, and a man. So all concepts. But ultimately, you got to let those things go. But she has somebody like Therese of Lisieux, again, a Carmelite. And Therese gives her some hope. To something for her trust. She says, love your littleness. Well, Ruth Burrows sure felt little. Love your littleness and love to feel nothing. Now, Therese of Lisieux died at 24. And it's amazing. That's what grace can do. It's amazing. God is free to do what God wants. love to feel you're nothing. Now, I don't know many 24-year-olds or late teens, early 20s who want to love to feel nothing. They don't want to love to feel nothing. They want to feel something. They want to feel a lot. Love to feel nothing. So she realizes, oh, maybe this is a path that is my path. Because she says, I don't feel anything. But Teresa of Lisieux, the suffering face of Jesus was the heart of things for her. So when she herself felt suffering, she says, Jesus, and this is who Ruth Burrows wants. She wants the God of Jesus. So, I mean, she's a Catholic nun. So whatever your tradition, who's your you say, who's your guru? Who's your leader? Who's directing you? So Teresa of Lisieux knows that when she's feeling lonely, and she felt lonely, and you think, oh, saints feel lonely? I thought saints don't feel like me. Yeah, well, obviously they do. So she says she felt lonely, but she says, I'm not alone. I feel loneliness. Doesn't mean I am lonely. It means what I feel. And as we often hear in psychology, you're not your feelings. Okay, what's in terms of spirituality? God, she says, Jesus knows what it is to feel lonely. Again, the cross. So this stuff, in other words, their spiritual paths have a history that helps them to make sense of my feelings and my God, or the inaccessible. The inaccessible knows exactly how I'm feeling, because the inaccessible, when it became flesh, had all these feelings. Emptiness, loneliness, misunderstood, so on and so forth. So the mystical. So what does she call a mystical? A lot of people say, oh, I want to be mystical. Oh, I'll tell you what Ruth Burrows says what mystical is. Mystical is human helplessness and our acceptance of it. Wow, that doesn't sound like anything I want, would say many people. But when you parse that or unpack it, you realize that if it's our helplessness, what it's saying is the mystical life is beyond human power to access. Just because you can sit for 20 minutes in some peaceful, relaxed silence doesn't and because you do Lectio, that is, you sit and you read a scripture, be it the Bible or Vedanta or a Lotus Sutra or the I Ching, whatever it is, and you ponder a few words, that doesn't make you mystical. It makes you moving along, but you're not yet there, because you're active, you're doing something, you're getting something, you think it's because you're doing something, you're getting insights, and so on and so forth. So what it means is then you become a person who has some peace and quiet 20 minutes a day with some insights about the spiritual path. But the question you have to ask is, did it make you a better person? Did it make you more who God made you to be? Did it get rid of your faults and failings and make you a more virtuous person? You ask yourself things like that. So that's the mystical, human helplessness. And that's what she felt. And she says, and I accept it. What else was she going to do? Leave? She could leave. But she says the mystical life is beyond our human power. So it's a self-emptying. The very nature of the mystical life is self-emptying, letting go of our agenda. Okay, well, she'd love to let go of her agenda because she's not getting anything, but let go of the agenda of wanting to get something. Now, say you are starting to get some good feelings. Be willing to not hold on to them. That is, to be willing to let them be removed from you. In other words, if God is taking you deeper and deeper, God's just from self, you're not selfish, but you like what you like. You got to get down to where you are letting go of what makes you feel good to get to this deeper place. So it's literally letting go of what makes you happy in the contemplative life, you don't have to get rid of it. Let God take it at God's pace. And you might be a person who God says, I can't get this person there right now, so I'm just going to let them continue to enjoy their spiritual practice. Well, fine. That's because God's the doing, not you. So, but it is a self-emptying just by its nature, being willing to let go, being willing to abandon yourself. So she realized later that she was self-emptying. And this divine exchange, the inaccessible, suddenly becoming more apparent, if you will, more of an experience, a deep experience. It can't be grasped by your mind. We often use this word faculties: mind, imagination, thoughts, memory. Those are what we call faculties. So you can't think it and you can't necessarily feel it. Well, if you don't feel it, what is it? Well, when you get there, you'll know. But in other words, it's not accessible to your imagination. You can't read about it and access it. You can read about it and sort of feel good for the moment, but that doesn't change you. You know the difference between reading about something and feeling good and actually having the interior exchange. That's when your life begins to change for the better. Let me give you an example of how your life changes for the better. You stop thinking so much about yourself. Remember, that was what was happening in the beginning, this sort of orchestra of thoughts, one after the other. Well, you stop that. You don't have that so much. And you find yourself just walking about doing the same things and experiencing more the sense of the presence. And that is often experienced in the sense of seeing yourself one with other people around you. This can happen in the grocery store. It could happen with your mask on in COVID times and other people wearing their masks. And you find yourself now not grousing about wearing masks or why the store doesn't have some product that you want or why somebody else is hoarding in your judgment, but that you feel a sense of peace and oneness, and this is the way it is at the moment, and God is present and at work. And you get less angry, you get less resentful, you feel more love, compassion. This is how it's going to start looking for you. So this is what the self-emptying does. But it sort of appears in your temperament, in your way. This is a way that you access it. So at some depth, she feels, and I think this is so true, we have to abandon this idea of ascending into the glorious heights of religious fervor. This is the stuff I hear from neophytes, new people in contemplative practice, or people who go into seminaries and monasteries and convents and so on and so forth, or say I'm going to serve God. Well, it's a start, and but early on, serving God is serving themselves. So forget about ascending to glorious heights of religious fervor. Don't even put that on your bucket list. If you're going to be there, God will take you there. But don't make it part of what you got to have, because God's in charge. And so empty yourself of having your idea, which of course you read about it someplace that somebody said, I had this, and, oh, that's religious fervor. That's exactly what I want. Well, that's them. This is you. And there's a chance that had they lived longer or wrote another book, they might have said, you know, that religious fervor I wrote about 10 years ago, forget that. I don't need no more religious fervor, something like that. So prayer is God's gift. This deep prayer, especially, is God's gift and knows what we need. And prayer then is our response to the gift. We, of course, think gift is something that makes us feel good. Santa Claus gift. That's not, you got to let that one go too. God's gifts don't always feel good. the guy in the cross, okay? God's gifts don't always make us feel good. All right. Now, I only got a few more minutes before we're going to take a break. She knew that she had what she came to realize is not just a neediness, a naked neediness. And that is at her very depths, underneath all her coverings and all her, the way she presented herself to the public, if you will. She said, beneath all that was a naked neediness. And she says, it's not resolved by attempts at self-perfection. So she tried that path. Okay, well, I'm not getting what I want here. I'll just try to be a really good nun, good girl, good boy. She says, that's barricades to God's love. It's just another one of your programs for happiness. So people often try to look good or act the way they think you want them to act, so they'll get something from you. So what she wanted to get, she says, if I'm really good, then God will give me good stuff, right? And good stuff is intimate union with the inaccessible. So that doesn't work either. You can't manipulate God. And trying to be perfect for other people, including God, it's just not going to work. And you think about our feel-good prayers. We have a lot of feel-good prayers. They don't make you a better person. So ultimately, she says, mysticism has nothing to do with experience. And she wasn't having any good ones. But later on, she realized as she entered into the mystical life, it never came from experiences because she didn't have good experiences. She had empty experiences. So she realized mysticism has nothing to do with experiences. You're not going to know that initially. She didn't know it initially. For most people, they have good experiences initially, and they think they're mystical. They're in some deep union with God. They understand the mysteries of the universe. Even scientists don't understand the mysteries of the universe. So if you say you do because you sit for 20 minutes a day in prayer, I think you're delusional. To do with experiences. That's why God takes away the good experiences along the way and brings you into these so-called dark nights. Because experience isn't God. It's an experience. It's an experience about God. It's maybe something tangential. Little touch in the center of God, if you will. We believe that the divine is within us at all times, in my tradition, but we only touch it. We don't get deeply into it. It's like a long distance phone call or something like that. So it's a narrow path. Narrow path leaves behind the spiritual riches. Well, it'd be nice to have the riches first, right? She never had the riches. But when she began to get riches, even then she realized that she couldn't hold on to those. But she realized that because she got there from nothing. So she knew that letting go. Total surrender. We don't start out with total surrender. Total surrender and trust. That's what she had. You trust that your surrender, your abandonment to God, will make you the saint, which is even beyond the virtuous person. Now, in the Carmelite tradition, of which she was, there is Teresa of Avila, who has this threefold stage at one point, which is purgation, purification or purgation, which you kind of realize, a little bit of silence, you realize all your thinking, you realize your bad habits, your thoughts, and those get purged. But that's not union. And then you move into an illumination stage. This is where the virtuous life begins to take over. But you need even more surrender to get to the transforming union. Or, as she would say, the seventh room of the interior castle. Surrender, surrender, in trust. Just keep doing that. So What's the good news? The good news is every day that you practice, if you start out, I surrender to your will, then you don't care how you feel after the 20 minutes because it's not up to you. What you want is a deep connection with the inaccessible, not with the accessible thoughts or feelings that you seem to conjure up, or maybe that God gives you just to keep you hanging around because you're so too weak to let go of yourself. That's the way I think this is a great grace. I sit there and I says, well, I don't know what's going to happen. What do I care? My job is to show up and try not to pay attention to my thoughts. And when I pick up my spiritual readings, which for me is the Bible, and I read something, I pick up a little passage out of the Gospels, and I think, I don't start out and say, oh, I'm going to have such a great thought. Sometimes I look at it and says, I'm bored. This is nothing. This doesn't apply to me. Stay with it. It may apply to me very much. But some days I have good thoughts and some days I don't. I put out a block. Some days it's trash. Other days it's pretty good. Who knows? But you do it every day. So I think just let go of your agenda in terms of what you want to happen immediately and allow God to reveal God as God chooses. Think of God as very shy, as waiting for you to be very accessible to the inaccessible. So let those spiritual riches that you had yesterday, don't expect them to come today. And certainly don't start looking for other methods because methods are just methods. Many people say, I used to be this. And I said, what happened? Well, that didn't work. So then I tried that. That didn't work. I mean, what's working? But have I gone about 45 minutes by now, haven't I? David?
Take a break? Yes, you have.
Yes, okay, what about a little break?
It's fine with me. Fine with me if you want to go ahead and do that.
5 minutes, that'd be enough? Ghislaine, 5? You're muted.
Oh, yeah, 5 minutes of a break. Okay.
Okay, 5 minutes.
We got to rush.
No, well, 7 minutes then for old people. All right, who's keeping time?
Thank you.
Well,
I'm taking a break too. I got to.
Yeah, Mary will keep time, she says.
And Father, before you leave, I need to apologize to you. You know, we've talked before earlier. I generally run high security meetings and therefore I never record. And so I forgot to record this until you were about a half an hour in. I really apologize for that.
So will we record it after that?
Yes, Father. I've been recording since about a half hour in, but I apologize. Like I told you before, I do small groups. They want high security, and so we never record and so on and so forth. But
okay, yeah, well, maybe it was God's will. Maybe the first half hour wasn't worth it. So don't worry, we'll be fine.
I like the first half hour.
Terry?
Yeah.
Officially, we have had a 6-minute break.
Okay, and Ghislaine isn't back yet. So
everything turns on Ghislaine.
Ghislaine is going to be delayed a little bit because she's trying to this conflicts with a Zoom meeting she was supposed to have with her family in Brazil.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
She's doing double duty.
But she'll be back. She'll be here.
Okay.
Okay. Well, what we are planning to do now, and let me ask this question just because I don't notice it myself. David, when I speak, am I the screen?
Well,
or am I? See, now I'm looking at you.
Yeah,
You're the screen.
Yeah, that is up to the individual viewer. The individual viewer needs to look at their screen, and there will be a place that says either speaker view or it says gallery view. Okay, if it says, and they need to click on that so it says speaker view. If when they click on that and it says speaker view, I mean, yeah, they click on that and that will make you the only person they see on the screen, except for a few people on the side. But the individual viewer has control over that. At least as far as my knowledge and experience goes.
All right. Well, I
am not an IT guy, Father. I'm just, I'm just a disciple who subscribes.
Knows enough.
Who subscribed to Facebook and tries to help out. That's the extent of me. So.
All right. Here is an idea that somebody said to me as well, that it's hard to look at a screen for a certain number of minutes. And I said, if you're listening to a Zoom talk, you don't have to look at the screen. You just listen.
Sure.
So if you want to look at the screen, go ahead. But if you don't, just close your eyes or turn away.
Sure.
So it's not like watching a play where you have to look at the actors all the time. So Zoom is sort of facial radio, if you will. Listening is important rather than looking. So now we said what we were going to do is to...
If I may share real quickly, Father?
Yes.
What I was just talking about, you see, that's what I do during a meeting, is I'll have it on speaker view, so the only person I see is the speaker. You take up the whole screen. And then every once in a while, I'll click on that button again and just scroll through the gallery and look at other people briefly or, other screens. And then I'll come back to you and go back and forth. And it helps break up that visual problem that you have. Yeah, it's called the talking head. There's nothing, with all due respect, Father, there's nothing more boring visually than a talking head. So that's how I break it up anyhow.
Yeah, so people can do that. Okay, well now what we said we would do is actually practice 20 minutes of silence and stillness meditation. Now, of course, many of you have a method. There you go. But say you're relatively new to this and you're hearing about this and you think, 20 minutes? What am I supposed to do for 20 minutes? Well, just not talking is a piece of silence. What you want to try to do is get a little silent within you. Well, what's that about? Well, it's about not paying attention to your thoughts. It's not about emptying your mind. You're not trying to empty your mind. Leave your mind alone. Let it do what it wants. What you want to do is not pay attention to the orchestra of thoughts playing out of tune in your head. or as we say, talking to yourself. So there's various ways to do that. I'll give you a very simple way. It is to think of one thing, like breathing. We are breathing. So you don't have to think about breathing so much. You're breathing. Just notice you're breathing. And just notice your breath 2 or 3 times, and then just sit there. Now, say a thought kind of takes over in your head, not background stuff like a bird or chirping or refrigerator door opening or whatever, but just a thought that has a kind of a whole play to it. It's got a start, a middle, an end, or some ongoing thought. And you don't want to pay attention to it. Just notice your breath again. Just notice your breathing 2 or 3 times. It's better to pay attention to one thing here and there than to a lot of things. Well, what might this do? It might take the thoughts that are grabbing you and just put them in the background, like a train whistle. You hear it, but you don't think about it. So try that if you don't have any method. And so we'll sit for 20 minutes. We have our timer, Mary, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm the timer.
She's going to hit a gong. That means 20 minutes is begun. And when she hits it again, the 20 minutes are over. So just close your eyes, get comfortable. You want to lie on the floor? Go ahead. Mary, you take over.
All right. And I'll sound the gong 3 times each time, both to begin and to close.
So I want to. This is the definition.
All right, let me go.
And I just wanted to go as far down as what it said about this. I cannot figure out.
Okay. You can open your eyes slowly and come back to your chair or wherever you were sitting when you were listening. One of the things that I like to do when I am meditating like that is I like to, when the little bell goes off or whatever I'm timing myself with, I don't open my eyes right away. I don't say anything right away. I, what you might call, savor the moment or the moments, a little bit like your, I think of it as your first cup of tea or coffee or whatever in the morning, and it tastes so good. Rather than put it down and rush off to something, you kind of savor the taste afterwards. So if you've had a relatively peaceful meditation, just let yourself savor it. Okay. I don't see any thing on the chat about questions, but you can wave your hand and maybe David might see it. I'm going to try to go to full screen for me. Show active speaker video. No, well, in any case, I'll just talk because Mary, you are my full screen right now. And now it's David. Okay, anyway, I'll go back. I'm going to talk a little bit more since it's being recorded at this point. I'm going to talk a little bit more, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and maybe bring some things together as well as go a little bit deeper into Ruth Burrows. There's really so much.
Father, if I may, I'm checking everybody's screen and I do not see any hands raised or.
Okay, well, I'll just go on. Oh, I see a new message from somebody. Could you say another word about purgation, illumination, and union? Yeah, I can say something about it. This is, in other words, a person who is experiencing the spiritual life tries to write about it. And one of the things that we like in our Western tradition especially is steps or a process. So Teresa of Avila, for instance, she's not the only one who did this, but she's one of the more famous ones in the 1500s, I believe it was. She wrote about this process, and I mentioned earlier that you try to practice a little bit of silence so that you can get in touch with the fact that you're always talking to yourself, which you don't notice when you're always talking to yourself. That is, you're so busy, you don't notice how busy you are. So it's a little bit like needing to relax a little to realize how quick pace the rest of your life is. So in trying to practice this like 20 minutes, say once or twice a day, and as I mentioned earlier, begin to practice silence by not saying something when you could say something that didn't need to be said. Like wear your seatbelt needs to be said, but a lot of times you don't need to make a response or say anything. Thought comes to you and you just stay silent. Practice that a couple of times a day, and you'll begin to have a little bit more silence in your life, as well as the 20 minutes of silence. What you begin to realize is all the thoughts and feelings and emotions that are going on inside your head. And you begin to realize some of your faults and failings that come out of a lot of that. And so you begin to let those go. And they begin to let go because you see them and you work on them. And plus, in the prayer, God will begin to lessen the energy of those, say, vices or bad habits. What's a bad habit? Being judgmental of other people all the time. That's a bad habit. So that's what purgation is about. When you begin to let those go, some virtues, a better way of living, acceptance. You go from judgment to acceptance, for instance, might be one of the things that happen. And then from acceptance to compassion. It may be from compassion to love. So that's moving along in the purgation, purification life. And then illumination will come a little bit later when you begin to let go of, you don't try to hold on to the good feelings of your earlier meditations, or you accept that now you're beginning to get bored. This is often part of the process. You feel bored in your meditations. You feel kind of, not much is happening. It's a natural progression. Why is that? Because we tend to think that if it went well in the beginning, it's because I do it. In other words, it's all about me. And that's not humility. As was mentioned in the earlier part of the talk, when Ruth realized that she wasn't getting anywhere on her own power, she began to stop trying to make things happen. It's a little bit like someone in Alcoholics Anonymous, really on their own power, they can't stop drinking. Humility is to say, I can't get what I want on my own power. That begins to be humility. So you have a little humility when your meditations are becoming a little bit blah, let's say, or not very interesting, or self-will. It just takes time. But when it comes, and what will that feel like or be like? It'll be, as I mentioned, you'll be less focused on all your thoughts. You'll find that they don't hold you. You see them passing through your mind like a passing train or something, but they don't hold you, and none of their energy controls you. And you begin to just have an ongoing sense of connection with others, compassion for other people. One of the ways that as you move from illumination into transforming union is in illumination, you'll have a thought of how to react to a situation. And it was your old thinking, but now you don't act on it. Some energy seems to get in the way of acting that out. You wait a second and you make a different response, a much more compassionate, kind, relational, caring response that you couldn't do earlier. Eventually, that you when a situation arises, and you'll just have a certain sense of peacefulness about your daily life as you go about, and you'll also eventually feel a much less need to talk a lot. It doesn't mean you become mute and say nothing, but you'll just, you'll be comfortable being quiet. I see this in the monastery. And I think people have been practicing this for 40 and 50 years. They're not forcing themselves to be quiet. They're just quiet. And they could say a lot of things, but they just don't. They're going about, in a sense, in union with God, but they're doing ordinary things like making themselves a cup of tea, fixing a sandwich, cleaning up something, and so on like that. So that's how it works. Let's see. Kimberly has raised her hand. Yes.
Kimberly Nelson has her hand up. Maybe she could unmute herself and ask the question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Hi, Father Terry.
Hello.
I just have a question about sensations in the meditation. Today, sitting, had a particularly intense feeling kind of in my heart space that was really quite uncomfortable. And I just did my best to feel that. But I'm curious what you would say. I mean, are sensations in a way similar to thought? Like, is that something we just kind of try to let go of?
Yes. Well, not try. In other words, trying to let go of something is another thought or another sensation. That's my sense. That's what works for me. So instead of trying to get rid of something, what I want to do is separate myself from the energy of it or the focus of it. And I do that by what I call a sacred word and a breath. And that's simply to remind me why I'm sitting here in the first place. That is to think no thought, hold no thought, ponder no thought, and don't even try to get rid of a thought. Just let it be. And for a moment, I move into this breath or this sacred word. And that's just to get me a little bit separated from it. So maybe the feeling lessens or goes into the background. Now, there's always a possibility that that doesn't really go away, even if you have this practice. Well, if you were Ruth Burrows, eventually you would see, well, I'm not going to try to make it go away. It is what it is. I don't know what it's about, any more than she knew what about her darkness was way early on. She only knew about it later when she had moved along in her journey and she could look back and say, that's what that was about. At the time, it was disconcerting. It wasn't what I wanted. I didn't know what it was about, but I trusted that it wasn't my job to get rid of it. In other words, it may be that this inaccessible, which I call God, but let's just call it the inaccessible. That's a good word. That kind of covers a lot. The inaccessible is at work, and that feeling has something to do with something. I don't have to figure it out. I don't have to know what it is. Now, Thomas Keating, who writes about centering prayer, would say it might be the unloading of the unconscious. That is, there's something deep in you. Well, Ruth Burrows had it. She was lonely. She didn't get hugged. It wasn't if she went in the monastery fully aware of all this stuff. But Keating says it's the great unloading of the unconscious. Well, you don't have to know what's in the unconscious. It's just down there. But the energy of it may need to be unloaded. And you may someday know something of what was down there, sort of past life or something like that, which is a point of information. But what's more important is the energy of it. So, for instance, someone said, I never knew that my mother ignored me and I was lonely. Okay, so now you know it. If the energy of it no longer controls you, then it becomes a piece of your biography, but it doesn't make you act a certain way all the time. As opposed to someone who doesn't know that their mother didn't love them, didn't pay attention to them. Their mother loved me, but didn't pay attention. My mother was very busy. She had a lot of kids. This was Ruth Burrows. My mother's preoccupied. She was sick. She didn't have time for me. Whatever the reason is, you still got this energy that is acting in your life every time something happens, and it takes you in the wrong direction. So the energy of the event goes so that the information becomes information, but it doesn't control you. So that would be the unloading of the unconscious. And so that could be what it is. But what I do is I just don't pay attention. I mean, I don't think it's something I got to deal with at the moment. Now, something you could do if you want, and some people do this, is they have a little journal they put next to them. And they write in their journal after they're sitting. Because the temptation is, another thing is, I had a great idea. I had a great thought. I got the solution to something. Now I know why I have problems with my mother, let's say. Fine. If it's important for you to remember that, you remember it after the 20 minutes. But while you're sitting, just treat it as anything else. And then, because I have had some great ideas that I couldn't remember 20 minutes, after the sitting was over. So I figured that was just my ego acting up or whatever. But it wasn't important enough that I remembered afterwards, much less write it down. So hopefully that's good for you. Somebody quoted Richard Rohr, your last great spiritual experience is the big obstacle to your next spiritual experience. Don't try to hold on to anything. God's at work, and what you want is a transformed life, not a good, happy 20 minutes every time you sit. So keep that in mind, too. Okay.
Father, may I ask a question?
You can.
Thank you. I'm Orthodox, and we always pray with our eyes open. And in silent prayer, we pray with an icon and with a candle. Now, I want to be clear, this is not single point meditation. You don't glare at or stare at or strictly or focus upon an icon like you do with some single points in Buddhist meditation or so on and so forth. We sit with an icon. It's as if we are sitting with a person, but with our eyes open. Is this a different practice than the practice that you're talking about?
Yes, it's highfalutin terms are apophatic. Apophatic means no images, hold on to no images, hold on to no thoughts. Cataphatic is another one. So it's used from ancient times. It means you maybe hold on to something so that you are not focused on many things. And I think, for instance, the icon is not, it's not a portrait, for instance. The icon is painted. They're painting a story, as they would say in the Orthodox tradition. They're painting meaning. And so you engage. Or intimate. So now I would like to talk to you. And I said, yes. And I give my full attention, or as best as my full attention as I can, which means a thought comes into my head. I'm very busy. I don't pay attention to that thought. I don't give it energy. I don't give it time, but I'm aware of it. Let it pass by. Let it become background. So I'm really listening to you, but I'm not listening to you with my mind kind of come up with an answer. So I'll look good, because you may not be trying to ask a question. You just want to engage me. It's a little bit like, I learned this a long time ago with many people. They're not looking for answers. They want to talk, and they want my attention to their talking, and they kind of work things out as they're talking, but they're not looking for me to tell them what to do. So I think in the Orthodox tradition with the icon, we're trying to pay attention to the story of the icon that's being told to us. so that it will take us deeper into our own selves. And it's often said you go through the icon into that same open, intimate place that the icon takes you to. But you're not going to go there unless you focus on that person and let go of whatever the heck is going on in your head. So I think that could happen. Somebody asked me, how did Ruth Burrows end up? Very good question. SOS meets once a month on the first Saturday of the month. And right now, they can't get into a building, so that's why they're doing Zoom. I could do this next month if SOS, when their group meets, right, Mary? When their group meets and they decide whether they want me again, their founder, I could go on with this. I mean, Ruth Burrows ended up still a Carmelite nun. And if you read her readings, they're very profound. And I have much more to say about her than we did today. So it could be part 2, but that's up to them. But she ended up very well. I'll just say this one last thing about her, and then we'll see if any other hands have raised. Is she still alive? I believe she is. She got to be close to 100. She was born in 1923. You know, those nuns, they last a long time. Any case, she did become a prioress. Now, it turned out, how did she do? Well, obviously, she was doing much better than she thought she was doing. You don't make someone a prioress who's bored with sacred things, is sick and tired of this whole process. So that was her inner self going on, but there was more happening than even she realized at the time. Remember, she said she was a sham. She felt like a sham, but they saw something else. And this is another thing that's going to happen to you in your spiritual practice. The first ones that will tell you you're changing, you're moving to illumination and deeper union are people around you. They may say, you're not so this, you're more that. You're not so that, you're more this. You're not so, picky or angry or resentful or preoccupied. You seem to listen more and listen better. You seem to be more present. You seem to be more at peace. Oh. So you'll hear it from others. And that's exactly what happened with her. They elected her the prioress. And her wisdom from her own spiritual practice, her own efforts with trust, was she felt that she wanted to make the sisters happy, valued, and loved. Now, you can't make another person happy, but you can sure make them valued and let them know that they are loved, and maybe that'll make them happy. How was she going to do that? She said, be able to help them to reveal themselves as they are. See yourself as you are. If you were to look at the recovery program, step 4 and 5, see yourself as you truly are, which is the purgation purification process. Help a nun to see where she is getting in her own way, or shortcomings, if you will, that seem to be habitual. Or if they are moving along, help them to see that they are really moving along so they know that they are growing. You don't need to read the Interior Castle before you read anything of Ruth Burrows. Interior Castle, I'm answering any question. Interior Castle is Teresa of Avila. You don't have to, you can, but you don't, it's not, one may not particularly help you with the other. So keep with this Ruth Burrows thing, what she learned from herself. Find out who you are now and be open to development. This is what she felt she needed to be as a prioress, because each person is different. And she saw when she came in and after her early years that she was not the same as others, but that didn't make her bad or wrong. It made her Ruth Burrows, whoever that was going to eventually be. So what she wanted the nuns to do is become their best self, not a good Carmelite sister. we're not cookie cutter people. And there was a lot of that formation years ago, and maybe it still goes on now, in which if they were going to keep you, you had to be just like so-and-so. In other words, they had a model, you had to fit that model. This is not, you're not working for a corporation. This is you're trying to develop yourself in relationship to the inaccessible. And you can only do that as God has made you. So each person is different. So become your best self, and then you'll become as good a Carmelite sister as you're supposed to be. And one thing she felt about this was read widely. I meet priests nowadays who go through seminaries. I think they're catechism places. I don't know. They don't read much. They don't read widely. They just read what already agrees with what they think, or what the professor tells them to read. But because Ruth Burrows was so unique, she read many things. And I do too. I read history. I read biography. I'm working on a book now. This is a great book called Educated. I've heard a lot about it. I can't believe this lady grew up hardly any schooling. She was barely homeschooled. She has a PhD from Oxford now. And she talks about growing up in this family that I said, I can't believe this happens. And just her movement along, gradually getting a sense of who she is. And sometimes who I am really goes against the grain of everybody else. That's a tough thing to do. Well, educated is. We'll end with that. I think and maybe I'll see you next month. It's up to SOS and David and so on and so forth. I see Mary laughing.
Father, Richard has his hand up.
Where's that? Okay.
Hey, Terry, Richard.
Oh my gosh, Richard. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Well, a quick comment on meditation and getting to possibly the route to your best self. I liken it to the 12 steps in this way, that the 12 steps I find as meditation also, as a supplement, introduced me to myself. And it can be a perilous journey because there's a lot of stuff that maybe you didn't want to know. That's part of the discovery. And also, in my experience, part of the liberation, that the unconscious demons that you're talking about are identified, gotten in touch with, and then can be let go. As you say, placed into a part of the biography. Okay, that happened, that's true, but I'm no longer a prisoner to it, and I'm no longer functioning in guilt and shame about it. I can now be something else, a better me. So I just wanted to mention, the perilous journey of sitting with God and what you might find out.
Thank you, Richard. And Richard is in San Rafael. So we have 4 time zones, I think, going on here. And that's the power of Zoom. Yeah.
I don't see any more hands, Father.
Later,
and I will.
What the total number was.
And I'll send the recording to Mary Baumgartner.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'll get a recording to Mary Baumgartner. And Richard, do you want the recording?
Yes.
Well, then you better put your email into the chat.
I'm in touch with Mary. So.
Oh, okay. And then you'll get it out. All right. Very good. Little by little, we will. Yeah. And if you send it to me, David, I'll let some other, because invariably somebody connected to nobody will find me and want to know, is it recorded? And I'll say, yeah here's where you go. Is it going to be YouTube or what?
I really don't know. I haven't worked with
Okay.
recordings before, but
Well,
I will
when
get
it
it to you. I will get it to you, Father, and I will get it to Mary, and then I'll
Okay.
let the two of you distribute it as you will.
Very good. Thank you very much.
If I can
Okay.
interject,
Well,
it's a Zoom recording, and all people have to do is link up to the Zoom recording, and they pick it up.
Yeah.
okay.
We'll get it out there.
Thank you. I'm done. Thank you very much, David. Thank you, SOS.
Thank you,
you.
Father.
Thank you, Father Terry, and we'll ask the coordinating committee. I think you're on for next month. You just volunteered.
All right. Well, all right. Mary Jane's on my side. I know that. I'll be all right. So let me know. And it's going to be part 2 of Ruth Burrows. That's what it is. Okay. Very good. Bye-bye.
Excellent. Thank you. God bless everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome, Ed.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
God was good to me. The thing didn't crash.
Yay.
Yeah. So here tonight. Yeah. See you tonight.
Oh, wow.
I spent a lot of time praying for the assistance of the Holy Spirit this morning.
Okay.
He usually backs me
That was
up.
really great.
You want to go off?
Are we done?
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're done. I'm just waiting
Thanks
for
so
people.
much.
I'm just waiting for people to click off. Good to see you guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Mary. Bye, Mary.
Do you want to go leave?
Yeah, we can leave then.
Okay.
I've got a few folks left, and I'm just going to shut down the meeting to make it easier for you, okay? Bye-bye.